Hi, my name is Tomasz and you're watching Casual DIY channel. In today's video, I want to show you a handheld mortising jig. Check out the video. Okay, so a couple of questions we're gonna answer during this video. A, does it actually work? How it's built? How to operate it? What's the price tag on this bad boy, and would it stand a chance against the Festool Domino? This jig has been gifted to me by one of my fantastic Patreons to check out, try out, and basically just use. I wasn't paid to say anything about this jig, or actually I wasn't asked to do a video on it at all. And the reason I'm actually making this video is because I think it's quite good. Let's check out all the features it's got and how to operate it. Right, so what do you get in the box? Obviously the jig itself, made from aluminium, a spiral cutting bit, 8mm, a collet for your router that will take the 8mm bit, Allen key, and some instructions. However, before we continue with the jig, I actually need to make some tenons, as I obviously don't have any, as I don't own the Festool Domino. So yeah, let's make some. And they will be 8mm thick, as the spiral bit that came with the jig itself. I'm actually using a round-over bit to give that rounded edges to the tenons, and they will be 4cm by 3cm, so quite big, but I think they will come in quite handy in my future projects. They are actually quite simple to make, and you can batch them out within, I don't know, half an hour. You have quite a lot of them to tackle any projects. And there you go, that's the end result. Super simple, super quick. Right, let's get back to the jig itself. As mentioned before, it is made from aluminium, and it's got this holder for the router. This particular jig can take spindles that are 65mm in diameter, so perfectly for the Katsu router I've got, or the Makita equivalent to that. As you can see, the fence at the front is all adjustable, the two pistons on each side that feel really solid, really good, and on top of that they've got the scales. On one of them it's in centimeters and the other one is in inches. Very good thought here. The whole fence really solid and well made, and it all works perfectly. Over here is the indicator where the middle of your bit will go, so that's very handy to see your markings. And this is the depth stop, easy to adjust to whatever desired depth of cut you require. The front of the fence is actually totally removable. That is very useful when you want to put your mortises on a flat board somewhere in the middle of it, then the fence is not in the way. The side to side movement is controlled by two knobs on each side of the carriage. Either or, you can spin either or to enlarge the movement left to right. You also got scales, as you can see on the carriage, so you can exactly pinpoint of how much movement is required to make a mortise that will take the tenon size you've got. I think it's a very clever design here. At the back of the jig, you've got a bolt that when you lock it, when you screw it tightly, it will prevent the jig to go from left to right, and basically you can use the jig to make holes for dowels. Very useful feature here. Right, it's time to install my Katsu router, and it's ever so easy to do. Undo the bolts, slide the spindle in, and secure the bolts. That's it. Now I need to set up the jig, so it will take the tenons I made. As mentioned before, 8mm in thickness, 4cm in length, and 3cm white. And setup of this jig is really simple thanks to all the markings, and it's really easy to use. So let's mark a couple of boards. First of all, chipboard. Later on I'll do MDF, and at the end I'm gonna do ash to see how it all goes and fits together. Thanks to the knob at the top of the fence, it's really easy to make sure to hold the whole jig firmly in a solid position so it will not move on you. Although you do need to put a bit of pressure to make sure that the jig will not move during routing. And let's have a look. The tenon fits, and that's always a good sign. Right, let's crack on with the few more holes and see how it all comes together. Right, moment of truth. Let's see if it will all line up to the markings I made and if they actually gonna go in. Da 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 da! And it all fits perfectly. I have to say I'm really pleased with the results here, guys. Okay, as mentioned before, we'll try on MDF, this time L shape. Make sure to clamp your workpiece securely so it doesn't move on you while using the router and the jig. Two things that need to be mentioned: there is no dust extraction built in this jig, and you will not be able to make angled cuts, and there is no angle adjustment with this jig at all. And let's have a test fit. Tenon fits lovely, and the front just like so. Super. Right, bit of hardwood. Let's see how that goes. I have to say that gave a bit more resistance than I initially thought it would, but hey, it is hardwood. And the fit, let's have a look. It all goes in quite well. Bit of persuasion. And there we go. Again, perfect joint. Now, is this jig perfect? No, it's not. And I did actually spend some time with it, and I'm going to tell you all the issues I've found with this jig that may be important to you. I am fairly heavy-handed person. So the problem I had with this jig is the depth stop. So you got the depth stop over here, and you got a small screw of some sort at the top, the fastener here. And basically what you do, as I showed you, establish how deep you want the router bit to go, lock it in place, and off you go. However, if you put a little bit too much pressure, it will slide. So what that means, you're going to be making holes that are way too deep, and that's definitely not something that you want. Not sure if it's just this particular jig I've got, or is it a problem with all of them. For me, at least, this is an issue, and on several occasions I made holes that were way too deep for what they should have been. Now, the router I'm using is the Katsu router. It is corded, so it's not cordless, and using the whole jig, you do need to put a lot of pressure on it so it doesn't move left to right, and it is obviously back and heavy where the motor is of your router. You know, it's fairly easy to lose your grip as the router it's pulling you away from your workpiece because of the weight distribution in the jig itself. If you're going to be using a cordless router, that means there's even more weight at the end of your router. So you're going to need even more force, even more strength to hold the jig in place. For some, that may be an issue if you don't have a lot of strength in your arms. For me, as I said, I am fairly heavy-handed, so that wasn't a problem. But I can imagine some of you guys may have an issue with that. Although, you know, you can make some clamping contraptions, some clamping jigs for this, and it will just work absolutely fine. That's more or less it. I have got no more issues with this jig. The whole thing really works. It comes together as a neat package. Is it a Festool replacement? No, absolutely not. This is for DIYers, casual woodworkers like myself. You know, you don't have to splash, I don't know, £800 or $800 on a new Festool. This jig costs about 250 Canadian dollars, so that's 170 something euros, 145 British pounds, and 194 US dollars. So it's not mega expensive, but on the other side, it's not super cheap. So it's not going to be for everybody. But on top of it, you need to remember that you need a router for it as well. So if you don't have a router, that will be an additional cost to the whole jig, so we actually are able to use it. Will I be using this jig going forward? Yes, I will, because I've got a few projects that I want to tackle, and I actually want to use loose tenons. So this is absolutely perfect for me. It does have a bit of a learning curve to it. So after a few tries, I established how it works best for me, how to hold it, how to clamp things. And after that, I didn't really have major issues. And the depth stop wasn't an issue for me as well, as I was aware of it. And I was trying to pay attention when I'm actually making the hole, not to add too much force to it. Ultimately, you have to decide for yourself if this is good enough for your money. Is it worth your money? And will you actually use it in your workshop? Or do you want to save a bit more and go for the Festool Domino? If you want to check out this jig, I'm going to leave some links, an eBay link and a website link to this jig. It's not affiliated links. I'm not earning from this absolutely nothing. I just want you to check it out. My opinion on it, it's a solid jig. It's not perfect, that's for sure, and you really need to pay attention when you're using it. However, for an occasional use, making some furniture, making some cabinets, this actually will come in quite handy. If you enjoyed today's video, drop me that like button down below and subscribe as well if you haven't done so yet. I will be bringing some more really cool content in the future, so you won't miss anything. But for now, that's all. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.